Hello, Cubs fans, and welcome to a brand new edition of Cubs on Tap. I am Ron Luce, and I am joined by three of my four incredible co-hosts. I missed you guys. I think the end of the season and life in general got crazy for everybody, so it's good to be back on the microphone with you guys. Again, I am Ron Luce, joined by Nick Hudson, Tyler Edmonds, and the Juice Man himself. Boys, today's Tuesday. Happy Tuesday. How are you guys doing tonight?
Let's put this shit to bed.
Insert funeral music.
It took me, let me just say this. It took me like 4 minutes to be done with Cubs Twitter during this press conference today. A lot of idiotic shit.
A lot of bad takes.
I could feel that when I read your tweet back at me today. I could really feel that. I could feel it coming through my phone. I was like, man, Juice is just he's miserable. Yeah, I can feel it. No, I'm good. It's good to see you guys. Happy October 1st.
Yes.
Happy playoff. I mean, it's always fun when the playoffs start. It's exciting to watch it and everything like that. It just sucks that once again for the seventh straight season, because I don't count 2020, that our team, we're not actually talking about our team playing in the playoffs right now. But yeah. Like you, Juice. I wish I had an organ over here. I can't play, but I'd try to play some kind of funeral thing or something. Maybe the Undertaker's music or something. It'd be cool.
I thought you'd play more like music from the Blues Brothers. Be like, dun, 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 dun,
that too. Good. Yeah.
We try to make people like happy again.
Yeah. Trying to bring up the feelings around Cubs baseball right now. Nick, how you doing, buddy?
Doing good, man. Doing good. Same as you guys. It's a sad state of affairs that we're going to have to dissect, unfortunately. But playoff baseball is fun. It's just not, like Tyler says, not as much fun when the Cubbies aren't in there.
Amen to that. Yeah, plenty of crazy baseball, good baseball happening all around today. Tariq Skubal had a damn good day among a number of other storylines over the course of the first day of October and postseason baseball. Before we dive into everything, Scott from Iowa, talk about the 2023, well, I think he meant 2024 Cubs, or watch the vice president debate. Talk about tough choice tonight. And Juice has the plans, or the plans are at least being prepared. And that's what some of tonight's show is going to be. So prefacing for everybody that's tuning in with us here early and wants to, or listening after the fact and kind of want to get a feel for what we're going to talk about here tonight. We're going to get some end of season. It is play-in season, but we're going to get some end of season reaction to start. We are going to dive into some of the quotes and just not get too deep into the weeds of Jed's presser, because I think as we talked amongst ourselves throughout the day, a lot of it was kind of him trying to beat around the bush with some of the questions. I think there was a couple of okay takeaways that I think are interesting and might play into some of those aforementioned plans there, Juice, that we will certainly touch on throughout the show. And then we're going to go back. We're going to throw it back to March 21st. We are going to revisit the season predictions. It was kind of a fun little exercise to go through that today myself, talk about the ones that hit. They'll talk about the ones that were not even close. I will admit I had a couple of those. Neither here nor there. We'll talk about a couple of season award winners, and then we will also get our first bold predictions for the offseason, as well as maybe a player that's already on our radar that we would like to see the Cubs go after, no matter if that's trade, whether that's free agency, whatever. Anyway, that's what we'll pretty much wrap up the show with tonight, but we're very excited to be back. This will be also, just for everybody that's tuning in, this will be our last show for a little while. I think the boys are all going to kind of decompress through the month of October. Most of us, unfortunately, Tyler, you are celebrating your own wedding anniversary this coming weekend with Miss Kate. But the other three of us, last weekend. But you will be out of town, I believe, if I remember correctly, this coming weekend.
I'm going to, Florida. I am leaving for Florida on Friday.
So you'll be out of town, but the rest of us will be celebrating with our fifth co-host, Mr. Joey Ricotta, as he gets married. So between that and their honeymoon and everybody just taking some time off. A couple of us diving into different sports that we help cover here at On Tap Sports as well. So that's what we'll be. Yeah,
I know Joey's going to listen to this. Joey, word of advice. I've only been married for 4 years, so I'm not like a super expert, but I know it sounds silly. The one advice I can give you: do not forget that date, like the literal date. obviously the day, but don't forget the literal date. Because if you do, you'll know about it next year, the day after, not the day of, but the day after.
Mhm.
Just say, not forget the literal date.
He literally picked 10-4. 10-4.
You got to do what you got to do.
10-4.
Ten
How
four.
do you forget that when Joey will?
My mom and dad picked Valentine's Day. So you got to do what you got to do.
There you go.
10-4.
Yeah. 10-4. 10-4. That feels like the most Joey thing ever, which is what makes it beautiful. A couple more comments here before we do dive into some stuff. So again, just mentioning, we'll be off the airways probably till probably November, unless anything super duper duper crazy major happens before then. But we'll probably be back with you guys sometime around early November is the realistic timeline after tonight's show. Scott says 2023, 2024, same shit new year. It literally was same record that they finished with, 83 and 79. Daniel Berry Sports says happy Tuesday. Hey everyone, how's it going? Scott's date is 8/9 of 2010, so he still remembers.
8-9-10.
8-9-10. Yeah, there you go. An easy one there. And Omar here, he says, why Cubs blame on coach's real roster problem is Jed Hoyer and Tom Ricketts. And we're going to dive in and talk a little bit about some of that here in the hindsight. But first off, end of season thoughts. Don't need to get super deep into these. I just want to know how you guys are feeling now that the season's over. Juice, I feel like you're maybe the most passionate about this. I'll let you go ahead and vent your frustrations first, but talk to me, man. How you feeling now that the 162 is in the rearview?
No, I mean, to me, the whole theme of the season is missed opportunities. I mean, when you lead 28 games and blow 28 games, you don't deserve to make the playoffs. If you go and look at all the teams that are in the playoffs and then look at the blown saves list, in the top 10, you just don't make it. You don't make the playoffs if you're blowing games at a rate like that. I mean, they were blowing games at the rate of teams like the White Sox. I mean, that's impressive for a while. I will say this. I thought the bullpen got better as the year went. So that's definitely a silver lining to this whole season. The offense, on the other hand, really did not. I thought they hit for a span of maybe a month and a half where you felt confident. Everything else was, I mean, April baseball or, down the stretch when it didn't matter anymore. And then even when it didn't matter anymore, you saw the last series, they could barely scratch together runs. And to me, the missed opportunities were, in my opinion, thinking of some of the guys who were on the roster all year and guys who could have gotten some time. I mean, I think it's a missed opportunity for, guys like Cade Horton, guys like Ben Brown. I mean, you can go down the list of prospects that could have gotten a taste. Owen Casey, maybe you can make that argument that, maybe he should have gotten a little taste at the end of there. I'm glad they did it for the Jaguar, but I mean, I thought there were more names to at least consider for that. But to me, it's just, I'm not as upset about how the season went because I thought that this was what this team was going to be. Now, maybe my reasons weren't the correct, but I didn't look at this team's roster and think, yeah, it's a playoff team. I just didn't because I thought that last year's free agent crop was very weak and Jed didn't want to be aggressive that way and trades never materialized. I mean, we talked about on this show the whole offseason that if they were going to really make a splash and they were really going to make some difference on this roster, it was going to have to come via the trade because they were never going to have Ohtani. They were never going to, sign Chapman. I didn't think that was a realistic expectation. And honestly, with the deal that he just got from Buster Posey, I'm good on that too. But I think it's just missed opportunities. And I think while Cubs Twitter is going to burn Jed to the ground, it's going to burn the Ricketts to the ground. You need to look at yourself and say, like, did any of the moves that any of these teams made last year and last year's free agency really pan out? Do we feel like we missed opportunity in last year's free agent class? I don't think so. I think by them bypassing this last year, this previous free agent class and looking more at this one, it opens up a lot more opportunity. Now, that's to be proven. And I think that the best thing we could do as Cubs fans, and I hate Cubs Twitter and I hate, the screaming at the top of the mountain. Some of it does work. I'll say that. And I don't think Jed is looking at his job comfortably. I think there was one question throughout today's press conference that was uncomfortable, and it was about his own job. And it was the first time I've ever seen Jed Hoyer take a second, repeat himself, sound like you ever see that GIF where the guy's holding all the buckets and he's trying to wash his car and he's throwing all over the place like that to me. And that was Jed Hoyer's answer. So, I think while it's warranted to be, in or out on Jed Hoyer, I do think that this is an offseason that is going to set up pretty well for him. And I think it's an opportunity for him to put some respect back on his name. And Jed Hoyer is not going anywhere. I'm just going to tell you that right now. He is going to be making the decisions this year, and we will see about next. But, yeah, I just think this year was a year of missed opportunity, and that comes with the bullpen blowing games, the offense being so sporadic, and there were a lot of, moves that I thought low-key did not help this team come, last offseason. I mean, how great would this team have looked with Jeremiah Estrada in their bullpen? He was incredible this year. Would have solved the problem. But, I mean, there's just a lot of moves that I think were missed opportunities that, seem very minor, but in the end of the day are very major.
Agreed. Well put, man. Well put. Tyler, anything to add to that?
Man, Ron, I told you the Oakland game I met you at. I saw you. These last two seasons have felt, it's literally been a 324 game season. That's what it's felt like. It's fall. We all like doing fall shit. Corn mazes. I told you this has been a corn maze. This season and last season was a corn maze. Yeah, you can take different routes through the corn maze, but you're eventually going to get to the same ending. And that's exactly what this was. You replaced Marcus Stroman with Shota Imanaga. Obviously, Imanaga was a lot better. But other than that, this team, not much different than last year. I feel like last year was almost a fluke in the run differential and all that kind of stuff. I really do. And, yeah, it's just a roller coaster. We've said it over and over and over. As much as we wanted this team to make the playoffs, I think we all knew deep down that this team to even come close to doing that was going to every player. And Jed kind of talked about it in his press conference, which we'll get to that. They all just had to be going on their hot streaks at the same time for a long period of time. I think they blew their wad in that little, whatever it was, that fun little 10 or 12 game stretch they had. But other than that, was any of us here really that confident that this team was going to make the playoffs? No, it wasn't. But yeah, I wish that last series, Juice, you talked about it. It was just a reminder of what this season was. You couldn't score a run. You couldn't score a run against the Reds. Kyle Hendricks probably had his best outing of his season this year on, Saturday. Mm-hmm. And you couldn't do jack shit for the guy offensively. Sunday was the same way. And you know what sucked? You know what really kind of sucked? And it's nothing against the players. It really, I wouldn't do this specifically for, against the players. But what just really sucked was at the end of that game on Sunday, so many fans stayed and cheered and applauded and everything like that. I almost wish that fans would have organized, kind of like how Oakland organized for the last game of their, at the Oakland Coliseum, a sellout. I almost wish it would have been the exact opposite. I really do. I hope that, and again, I agree with you, Juice, as far as for the most part, Cubs Twitter pisses me off, especially today. I got an argument with the guy about Patrick Wisdom. about Patrick Wisdom, how, oh man, he led the league. And maybe this guy wasn't trying to make this criticism argument, whatever you want to call it.
Was it Scott?
made the statement about how Patrick Wisdom led the league in fly ball percentage. And why's my mind gone blank? Anthony Sandanter, he was only at 55%, and Patrick Wisdom was at 60+%. And it's like, dude, Sandanter had over 400 more ABs than him. So stop trying to and be prepared, fans. This is not only this offseason, your hot takes, and we like sitting here talking about what we want this team to do, but it's also at that same time there's going to be people that try to pull somebody's season out from 2024 that wasn't very good. But it's just the obvious. This ex-player stunk. We'll just say Patrick Wisdom, for example. He stunk. This is the time of year where you're going to see people try to pull something out of their season and be like, well, it really wasn't that bad. Look at this. Not really. Stop trying, so that, it pisses me off. But I just wish fans, and I hope they do. I hope they do this offseason. I hope Jed has so much pressure on him right now, because I didn't learn much after this press conference today, and I'm sure we're going to talk about it next. But I hope I hope everybody holds him so freaking accountable. But like you said, Juice, he's probably going to be here this year and next year. If he was going to be gone, if he was going to get fired, he would have got fired probably last year. And it's just not going to happen because, well, Jed said it in his conference. This team he's as far as from a money standpoint, did really freaking good. And that's what Tom Ricketts likes. So there's that. But it was just a roller coaster of a season. And I'm glad the ride's over. And I'm cleaning the puke up off my shirt now.
Entirely fair. Nick, what would you like to add?
Yeah, no, I echo exactly what you guys said. I mean, it really was. It was a disappointing season because we looked at the roster. We knew it wasn't going to be great. There really wasn't a guy on there where you're like, well, I don't want to face him. And that kind of ended up being the problem, is what it boiled down to, is teams could just pick right through our offense. There was really no guy that you circled in that lineup and you went, we need to work around him. It was just a problem. But, you can only go so far with good stories like Imanaga and Bush if you're Jed, which it is great, but ultimately he didn't go and make that big splash move offensive-wise that we needed. So it's disappointing. I echo everything you guys said because it feels like it's the same thing over and over and over, that we're having the same story. It's just years are going by, and when are things going to change? And hopefully we can talk about some of the plans we have, but obviously it depends on what they're going to do. But ultimately it's really very disappointing because fans will continue to show up. Like Tyler, I respect a lot of what you said with almost staging like don't go, but fans are just going to keep showing up. They're very loyal and they deserve more. And that's what, we've said for a long time, and it's on Jed to put the roster together. I think his seat is getting a lot hotter than what people are giving credit for, because it really does come down to putting together a good roster. And when we looked at it, Bellinger was the big splash with the bat wise, and we knew that was going to be a problem. We knew that was going to be an issue because we saw last year with the numbers, there was a lot of good luck in there. There was a lot of this and that. So we knew what was coming. Even in we may have put our trust into the fact that they might compete, but ultimately we knew, and here we are disappointed as we always are. So it's like the same thing.
Indeed. I think you guys summed it up perfectly. It really was I think last year was different in the sense that there were so many injuries early and they didn't really find their groove till late in the year. And then they played like a team that could figure it out. And then they just ran out of gas. I think this year it was, like you guys all said, missed opportunities. It was, you had the opportunity to win these games. I mean, I still think back, Tyler, to the San Francisco Giants game we were at on that Monday night when they blew it and just feeling broken. And it was 28 of those this year. The sad thing, Ron, is me and you talked that game into existence. We talked that in. We really did. But you figure, even if 55% of those games go the other way for the Cubs, they're a playoff team when it's all said and done. So it really just goes to show how everything played out. An insane amount of comments, so I'll get to a couple of them from the comment section. Scott said this a little bit earlier, the goods of the season, PCA and Amaya's development. We'll touch on that a little bit in depth and a little bit more later. Scott also said at least the Cubs didn't sign Jordan Montgomery. He says even the Arizona owner hated that they signed him. Yeah, it really did show kind of in terms of that front, that free agency group, Juice, like you mentioned, where it just wasn't a really great year. Like Shota was obviously the big get for the Cubs, and it panned out very much so. But do you look at their best other acquisition? It was Michael Busch, and you got him via trade. So it just showed that was kind of how the year was going. Hank says here, I am here to hear Teddy torch his front office. Tired of the Groundhog Day movie. Enough of the mediocre seasons. I agree, and I think we'll continue to get into it and talk through some of that.
I want to just ask a question that's kind of relating to this.
Sure.
And it's kind of in terms of baseball philosophy. Do you think that this front office, meaning Jed and Carter and all the company that's attached to it, do you think they're too smart for their own good, that they feel like they can do this cheaper? And maybe that makes them apprehensive to grabbing high-end talent that is safer? Like they feel like they can make a Hector Neris a closer, or they can make a Patrick Wisdom-like player into an elite bat off the bench. Like, I start to wonder if Jed just needs to take all of the simplicity back into it and just think, this guy wins us baseball games. Let's just go get him. Opposed to, I'm smarter than 90% of the GMs in the league. Let's get cute and bring in this guy and this guy and this guy.
Maybe. There might be some of it. I think it's hard to figure out too. And even today, there was one interesting thing that I think Jed said, and he said it, and I kind of looked at it funny, and I was like, did he really just say that? And then I kind of did a fact check, and he wasn't totally wrong. That like there's such a small crop of truly elite players in Major League Baseball, especially from like a hitting standpoint.
Sure.
Like I pulled this up. Of guys with an OPS, there was only 9 players in baseball that had an OPS over 900 this year. 9. That's it. And granted, they were very dominant, right? I mean, Judge and Ohtani being the top 2, Soto, Bobby Witt Jr., Yordan Alvarez, Vlad Guerrero, Ketel Marte was actually the 7th best player in baseball if you go by OPS metrics. Brent Rooker was incredible, and Marcelo Zuna. And then even from there, like, as crazy as this might sound, Seiya Suzuki was the 18th best player in baseball by OPS.
Yeah.
So he kind of mentioned about how, like, maybe just baseball, because it isn't as juice ball hitter friendly anymore, that maybe you do have to move the goalposts a little bit in terms of, like, what's truly elite, because there's so few guys that are truly elite. Like, even Bryce Harper wasn't a 900 OPS player this year. Granted, he was very high 890s, but even he missed that kind of mark where I think a lot of people consider like elite ball players to live, right? So it's really weird just to like kind of take that into account. So I could see where you're going with that, Juice. I really can. But I
think it's interesting though, of the 9 you named, 3 of them are potential trade or free agent candidates.
True.
Rooker, Guerrero,
yep.
Soto.
Yep. Yeah.
I mean, so if you're Jed, like, there's no excuses, because Rooker and Guerrero were talked about being moved at the deadline. They didn't, and now you're a year closer to them being not out of arbitration for Guerrero, but for Rooker. And then obviously the conversation with the Blue Jays trying to start over, that makes, an interesting trade candidate for Guerrero. But there's no excuses. This year is no excuse. Last year, excuse. Free agent class sucked.
Yeah.
No excuses.
Yeah, and I think it's even better on the pitching side too.
Mm-hmm.
As far as you're talking about Jed in the front office and just basing everything off of his statistic, his logistics, whatever you want to call it. maybe there's not a balance in that front office of a little bit of this and a little bit of that. It's just this, as far as Jed's mind, this is it. And maybe he's also under the cushion of maybe he's not super worried with Ricketts as far as losing his job, because I feel like if that would have happened, it would have done happened.
I think if he whiffs and they miss the playoffs this coming year in 25, I don't think Jed Hoyer's here anymore. It's going to be a lot easier for them to cut him
because his contract's out.
Yeah.
Yeah, then you let him walk. You don't owe him anything.
Yeah.
You just say, all right, we're not re-upping, we're not signing your contract. Keep it moving.
They won't have.
You're also another year. You're also another year past where there's probably better, because I haven't done the dive on free agent baseball, like front of office names that are available for this year, because obviously I didn't think Jeb was going to go. But you're another year where I think maybe one of those bigger names is moving on from their post, or maybe you're getting an up and coming candidate with a little bit more of a track record because of that. They have a guy in their own system that could do the job potentially. If you're into Dan Kantrovitz, it's a name that I think a lot of guys would look at and say probably gets a look at if Jed leaves.
Yeah. Especially when you see what the success that they've had with the draft. I think there's a lot to be said there. Be something interesting. A couple more comments, gentlemen, before we just start to touch on some of these talking points as well. And I don't think we have to go super in depth on the stuff necessarily from Jed's presser, but just some of the stuff that I think is worth interest. It's interesting to note, and I think it will generate a lot of what if type of conversation, and that's why I want to bring it to your guys' attention. This from Jay a little while ago. He said, "At least the Brewers lost today." Yes, we love to see that. I will always take that forever and always. Darren said a little bit earlier, 2 closer and 1 additional solid bullpen probably would have gotten it done. Modestly, maybe another 10 wins, and they're probably in the playoffs. I think the only thing with this, though, is it's great that you want to get to the playoffs and anything can happen. But did we really think this Cubs team was going to do shit in the playoffs? I don't. I think that's the issue with it, right? It's they wouldn't have had enough steam going into the playoffs where I would have felt confident, because even we still sat here and said wow, they pissed away this game because their bats couldn't hit, or they couldn't do this, or they couldn't do that. There were still so many glaring holes.
And on that point real quick, Ron, I hate this idea of just this quote of getting to the playoffs. Mm-hmm. It when the mentality and the idea should be winning this division.
Yes.
You're the $4 billion Chicago Cubs. According to Forbes, that's their net worth. You're the $4 billion Chicago Cubs. You were ranked 6th this year in attendance. Mm-hmm. It's not getting to the playoffs or scratching our way into the wild card, which I had mixed feelings about that. That's a whole other thing. You see the Tigers right now. You see the Mets, who, let's be honest, preseason, nobody thought the Mets had a shot. Stuff like that. So I'm sure there's this idea with maybe, Jed and even fans in general of just, scratching our way into the playoffs. That it's winning the division.
I think it's more than that, Tyler. I hate this 90-game limit that us as fans have put on the Cubs too. Let's win 90 games. No, how about we win 97, 98, 99, 100 games? Because the teams that normally the teams that normally win or at least get to multiple World Series runs here, those are the teams that are consistently winning 95 to 100 games.
Yeah.
And that's what, especially like you said, as the Chicago Cubs, $4 billion, there's no excuses.
Yeah.
No excuses.
It's just this acceptance of mediocrity.
Yeah. And 90 wins is great, but the team that won the division this year won 90 games, and they're a game away from being bounced. So 90 wins is great and all, but win 100 games so you're not in that bullshit early on 3-game wild card crap. I don't want that.
Yeah, that's true. There is something to be said that if you are truly a dominant team, it gives you an opportunity to, at least have the upper hand in those wild card games, if you are involved when it's all said and done. A couple more comments here as well. Jeremiah said a little bit. He said hello a little bit earlier ago, but it got buried in the comments here. He says we got to beef up the bullpen, even though they're better in the second half. I agree. Scott says they will bring back Wisdom, 2 years of control, and they get him for under $800K. False. No. He was $2.2 million this year, so he will not be under $800K. Will he probably be back? Probably.
Yeah.
Jeremiah said if they had 2023 Advert, they'd be in the playoffs. I admittedly don't know if that's the case. Omar says Jed Hoyer is not Theo Epstein level. We don't have enough time to dive into this today. Like Theo did a lot of good stuff, but it was November also very flawed as well. Yeah, that'll be a good November episode. We'll I'm gonna gold sticky star that one so we can come back to that at some point. Jeremiah says Ozuna from the Braves, if you didn't know.
I don't even acknowledge Ozuna. Ozuna can eat a bag of crap.
And Jeremiah also called it shitistics.
That's a T-shirt idea, Jeremiah. That's a good T-shirt idea.
And then this here from Darren. Closer, solid lefty reliever, one solid starting pitcher, quality catcher with control. Should be top priorities this offseason. And we'll touch on some of the priorities and some of that here a little bit later in the show. But let's get to it. Just a couple of the talking notes from Jed's presser. And I'd rather this be open forum more so than answering each of these directly. So I'm just going to kind of read through the bullets here of some of the takeaways I had and let it be free reign. And we'll just get after this thing. The first one, playoffs being the expectation. LOL. Secondly, the prospect talk to me was fascinating because the way Jed phrased it very much sounded like, hey, yes, we have all this prospect capital, but we're not just going to use it as currency to trade for other players. We are going to develop some of these guys and have that depth and things like that. Like that sounds like something they're very, about here. But I will say, and I will give credit where it's due. They did say, hey, when you have that depth, if a guy's not playing well at the MLB level, you pull up a new guy that can come in and take his place. And it's like, okay, challenging him, something that we all talked about, right? About none of these guys feel, they all feel comfortable in their position because there's no organizational depth. I think that's something that's certainly interesting there. Craig's coaches, recent firings, for those that haven't seen it yet, Black Monday for around Major League Baseball. Cubs made several changes, including letting go first base coach Mike Napoli, the hitting coach Jim Meducci, the bullpen coach Darren Holmes, and a couple of other strength coaches was the reports there. In addition to that, whether or not they think they can improve in the offseason or how do we think they should improve. Judge job security, which I know was kind of already mentioned here as well. In addition to some of that, a healthy payroll was one of the takeaways. And if there are going to be any trades, I think they're going to be young trades, right? Like they're going to be for younger players. They're not going to go for, the 32-year-old with a bunch of prospects. Like if they're going to give away meaningful prospects, it's going to be like a Paredes or a Pearson level trade where you're getting guys, 25, 26 years old. He's got a lot of baseball out. So those were some of the thoughts. I guess I'll start the conversation here because I hear all that and I say, okay, you can go out and improve. But to me now, it feels like, wow, this is the season where if Jed's going to go down swinging, he's going swinging with his farm. Because I think, you got Matt Shaw, you got Triantos, all these guys up to AAA, right? By the end of the season, you gave a taste to Kevin Alcantara at the end of the season, which I think was awesome. And I love that they did that. I'm really intrigued to see how they approach this offseason because I think they're, like you said, Juice, like I think it's a strong enough free agency crop where there are moves to be made. But where do they potentially, leverage some of this prospect capital, especially if they see a guy and they go, I don't know where you're going to play. And maybe you go get a Brent Rooker, or maybe you go get a Vlad Guerrero Jr., one of these guys that was one of the top players in baseball, and say, hey, we have a guy that we think is truly, he's going to be here. He's going to do X, Y, and Z versus, well, if this guy has a 5-win WAR season, that's going to be the guy type thing. So, Nick, I want to give you the floor because I want to hear from you as well. But by all means, then free for all. I want to hear what's going through your guys' head with some of those comments.
Yeah, no, I definitely think it's always sounded like that's been a big part of Jed's plan is to rely on the young guys. And while I think that's a good thing for sure, and it's going to be with the next year coming up, the problem with that is sometimes there's a lot of growing pains, and those growing pains can take time. So that's why, I mean, you're going to need guys like, obviously you don't want to, I don't personally want to see guys like Shaw or Horton or even Triantos like go, but at the end of the day, you're going to have to, as you said, there's going to be positions that are blocked that you're going to have to leverage some of those guys and use them, but you do need to ultimately develop them. But like I said, weighing heavy on young guys is kind of, it kind of just makes me like nervous because there could be a lot of growing pains, there could be issues like that. So I mean, it's always sounded like that's been a big part of Jed's plan. It's just with prospects, and I hope it does come to fruition. They obviously work out, but it's a prospect, so you really just don't know at the end of the day. So,
see, Nick and Ron, I took that totally different by him bringing up the prospect capital that they have. I took it as this is my opportunity prior to all of these moves being made to talk up how great my system is. So when I get people on the line, I feel like I have somewhat of negotiation power. Two, I think it's flipped. I think that there's certain names that he really, really likes, and then there's certain names that he probably doesn't like as much. Like, I mean, we've talked about Triantos and Shaw, right? Like those are, but that's a very similar player. Which one does he like better? Does he like Shaw? Does he like Triantos better? Does he feel like Triantos nets him, some of that wish list that Darren was talking about in the comments? And if that's the case, then like you need to go in front. Fans aren't the only ones watching these end of year pressers, because it does give an insight as another team, if you're another GM, of what Jed Hoyer's thinking. And knowing that they have such a great system, there's going to be teams that are trying to shed payroll, or, we were talking about this too with the regional sports networks and the fallout from that. Like there's going to be a lot of movement and parts. And I just think that was an opportunity for Jed to, come out and say, like, I'm going to go down swinging with the farm, but I think it's certain guys from the farm. And I also think some of it was kind of jockeying into place of like, I have a good system that I can use for the roster, but then also supplement what I can't get. Because think about it this way. If there's not a catching prospect that is at any three of the levels that is walking through the door, so where's it coming from? Well, you're either signing a catcher, which go ahead, look at the list. It's not very good. Or you're going out and you're trading for one. That's going to take prospects.
Yeah, there was a lot of rumblings with a young catcher out in Los Angeles named Logan O'Hoppe supposedly being on Jed's wish list at the deadline because he's only 24 and he's big league ready.
And that's why I sit here today and I'm like, I think a lot of that is talking up a system, and it's positioning yourselves and playing sleazy salesman of like, I have a good system I can take from it, but also too, like it announces to all the rest of the league without announcing it that Cubs are open for business. Because I took that whole press conference as, it's not acceptable. And he said the same thing last year, but I felt like it was more hurried this year opposed to last year seemed more, it's not acceptable. We don't make the playoffs, tongue in cheek. Like the free agent class sucks. And we're kind of relying on trades, being poofed out of thin air. Like that's kind of what I thought last season was.
Yeah. And correct me if I'm wrong. Wasn't his presser a few days later?
Mm-hmm.
Last season too? Like it felt much more laxed because I think they exceeded a lot of expectation by finishing with 83 wins. And, it was kind of the first real year that they were quote unquote competitive again after the true sell-off. And there was a lot less expectation when it was all said and done, where now, this year they hurried October 1st. I mean, baseball just ended on Monday, with the doubleheader between the Mets and the Braves. Now all of a sudden he's like, hey, we're out here. Okay, here we go. This is what we're doing. We're getting it out of the way. We've already done some end of year meetings with veterans. And like, it feels like there's almost a little bit more hustle than there has been in years past of like, okay, now when we say playoffs is the expectation, it truly is, because if it isn't, I think Tom's starting to look at the bottom line and go, it would be really nice, Jed, playoff money. Mm-hmm. Playoff money would look really good on our bottom line when the end of November rolls around and we're doing the books for the year. They haven't had that in how many seasons now? I mean, shit, when was the last time the Cubs hosted a true playoff game, not just the bullshit play-in game when they played Colorado? 17?
17?
Yeah, 2017.
Yep, 17.
I mean, shit, I was still baby-faced and didn't have a beard yet in 2017.
18 when they had the one-game playoff, and then
they lost to the Brewers on the final game of the season. It let the Brewers win, and then the Rockies they won. The Rockies had to beat somebody, and then they turned around and beat us in that. It was a night game on ESPN.
Yeah.
Talk about the Rockies and their fall from grace. At least it's not as it hasn't gotten that bad yet. But I think that's an interesting point you bring up, Juice, because I sit here and now I'm like, okay, maybe if that is the case, because I see those comments, and I see some of our comments section as well too, and some of this, and Jeremiah saying prospect talk was so 2022, and Hank saying that the Cubs severely need hitting upgrades at second and third. Nico's 708 OPS, Paredes is 633, not getting the job done. Well, I don't think anybody realizes Paredes has 3 more years of arbitration, and you sent away 3 prospects. He's not going anywhere. And again, he also struggled after the trade. Like, I think strikes me as the kind of player with, like, he has a home, he's going to do better kind of guy.
Yeah,
I know. I digress. I do like Darren's comment here, though, really quick. He says, we need a disclosure before a show like this. What should the Cubs do, or what's the best we can hope for under the current regime?
What if they're the same, though, Darren? Because I think that there's a plan where both those needs are met. What they should be doing is maybe what they could be doing.
Yep. I agree.
I think this is maybe the offseason and I don't ever, you've known this, Ron. I've been on this show for freaking forever, it seems like. And I've never shouted at Jed or at Theo when he was here. I've essentially said, I'm going to get in the boat and I'm going to say how I feel, but they're the ones who make the decisions. They know a lot more than I do. I think this may be the first season where I start throwing some stones at the front office if I don't see it, because there's no excuse. They have payroll. They have openings and needs in the lineup, and I wouldn't hate if they went out and signed a top-of-the-line starter either. You always need pitching. So There's just no excuses, and the free agent crop is not bad. It's deep, and it's only going to get thinner as the years go. So figure it out.
Yeah, I agree. A couple more quick comments here, and then I'll open it up as well. Jeremiah says, when's winter meetings? I'm fired up. Early December, my friend. That's when the winter meetings come and go. Darren said, I hope Juice is right, but just in case, I want some of what he's smoking. And then Hank says here, to open up an outfield spot, I'd move Hap back to second and Shaw and Paredes battle for third. Hap's not going back to second base. The guy
also, Shaw can't play third.
No. And you saw it.
He can't do it.
So he's probably a second baseman. And that opens up a question, because first up, Ian Happ is potentially going to win another Gold Glove this year. There'll be 3 straight Gold Gloves for the NL left field. I mean, he just led your team in home runs and RBIs. He is probably at least one of the more consistent players in the sense of what you're getting from him. He walks a lot, he can drive in runs, and he can hit for some power. And he's on a pretty friendly team deal, both in terms of dollars and duration. I'm not moving him anywhere. He's in left field till the day he dies. And you tell any of the bleacher bums this, and they might riot if he gets moved back to the infield. But this one I do want to talk about, gentlemen, because we talk about where can they upgrade and what are they going to do and what's the direction? Are they going out and spending? Go ahead, Tyler.
Can I say something about Jed's press conference real quick?
Please do.
Please do.
I thought it was a lot of dancing around questions. Juice, you brought it up when you tweeted it at me. A lot of softball style questions. They knew what they were doing. The one difficult question he had, you guys, we brought it up as far as like, how would you grade yourself? It was a direct question to you, Jed. I know you're not listening. Maybe you are. I don't know. I doubt it, but hopefully you're working on stuff for this offseason. But it was a direct question to you, Jed. And just like every question that you were answered on there, you danced around it. You referred to the organization. Take accountability. And just say, hey, it wasn't that great this year for me. It wasn't. My moves that I did, and as far as all that, it wasn't that great. You did a good job of blaming Wrigley Field and the weather. You blame the weather and I get whatever. But guess what? the away team has to play there too.
It's true.
So the whole it was just, and then as far as we put ourselves in a slump in May and in June, and we talked about it on this show in April. How long was it? How long is it till it's not a slump anymore? And it's just, you are who you are, and this is what they were. It wasn't a slump. You can say that was a slump. That's fine, whatever. He also made a point about, you guys talked about the prospects. Prospects is the greatest form of currency. Okay, cool. Do something with that currency then. It's your last year. Put your balls on the table and say, then you know what? Fuck it. I'm either going to ride or die with these prospects. I'm going to call them up at the beginning of the year. He's not. That's not going to happen. Or trade them off for these trades that they need to make. I wish it was more like a Theo Epstein style press conference a few years ago. Granted, we all saw what happened afterwards, but beforehand, we were all kind of excited about it. He said changes were going to be made. Changes were needed because the production hasn't been there. That's all you have to say. I don't care about the whole, we need guys to outperform their projections and blah, blah, blah. And I built the prospects. I don't fucking care. Sorry. But I'm just so sick of it. I'm so sick of it. It's like, cool. This is your last year, probably, because if you really think about it, is there going to be major changes coming in next year? I hope so. Doubt it. But put your prospects where your mouth is. Then put your prospects where your pen is, whatever you want to call it. Call them up. But again. Was we really going to get answers out of this out of this press conference that we really wanted? Right, Juice? No, we wasn't. I mean, the playoffs just started today. We're not even close to the free agent market or anything like that. So if anybody was expecting to get the answers you really wanted to hear, it wasn't going to happen. I just wish that Jed would have took more accountability instead of just dancing around shit, talking about, what I've done money-wise for this organization, and we as an organization should be happy, really happy. And the prospects. Let me tell you again about the prospects. But I just, I don't want to sound like broken record, and I don't want to sound like a Stan, and I don't want to sound like, oh, man, you're just pissed off and blah, blah, blah. But it's just, it's the same shit. It was the same shit last year, but like you guys said, a little bit longer. This year, it felt like it was barely 20 minutes.
You could have turned that press conference off.
Yeah.
When the one reporter asked, "What are we looking at in terms of payroll next year?" and his response was, "I haven't met with anybody from payroll yet. We're just getting to the end of the season." At that point, everybody should have turned it off and said, "We're not getting real answers," because he doesn't even know how much he can spend yet. He doesn't even know what guys they can cut and keep and what they can get it down to. Shit. Cody Bellinger needs to make a decision, and that's going to weigh heavily on what they do and not do.
Yeah.
So,
but I'm just I was at least expecting a little more accountability from Jed.
Sure.
Be that leader in the front office. That's who we all are talking about when we're on here. Is you, Jed? You can say what you want about Craig. Oh, he's got his $40 million. It's cool. You're the guy, Jed. You're making the moves. You got the responsibility. I wish there was more accountability today, and there wasn't.
Well, otherwise they're going to be the Jimmy Butler Cubs. And by the Jimmy Butler Cubs, I mean you're going to be the Jimmy Butler Bulls, which were stuck at 41-41 for their entire Jimmy Butler run. And it was the same conversation over and over until they traded him.
Yep.
That it was. Couple more comments here quickly. Jeremiah says prospects are greater than Dogecoin. This was the one question that I had left before we kind of roll it back to March, look at some of the season predictions, how those fared, the season awards, things like that. Do they trade Nico Horner? And Darren followed it up. He says he likes Nico a ton, but it's been running through his head a lot. He's the one trade chip they believe they can replace. Do you think Nico Horner is on this roster? This is the one, just the tip touch we're going to touch here in terms of like real hardcore, what's this team going to do? Because we'll reconvene with these type of discussions back in November. But we're going to tease it right now. Is Nico Horner on this team next season? My answer is no.
It's funny you said, hell, Ron, You started this conversation at the Oakland game.
I sure did.
You did. And you broke down every single position, every single spot. Is Nico on this team, or do I think Nico should be traded? Yes, he should. And it's no Nico. When you look at his season this year, it wasn't terrible. It wasn't terrible considering, yeah, he dealt with injuries and stuff like that. But if we're wanting a splash, if you're wanting a big fish on this team, something has to go. And a lot of times with a big fish, that team that's trading that big fish is going to want a major league ready player. And you broke it down, Ron. Nico's about the only major league ready player that you can deal right now, that you can deal easy as far as doesn't have a no trade clause, still has a little bit of value, had 30 stolen bases. I think he batted around 270. You're not going to get the home runs from him, but so what? He's got the gold glove and all that and can play short. I think he's the one trade piece. If you want to get a big fish, he's the guy. He is. But like I said, I think they should. I'm calling it right now. He's going to be on this team at opening day, and he shouldn't. And that's no disrespect to Nico, and that's no disrespect. I know there's fans out there that love Nico. But that's just that's my opinion.
How you feel? Yeah. Do you agree, Nick?
Yeah, I think he's going to be on the team for sure. I agree also in the sense of I think they should trade him. I think he's a big trade chip. Like he is the guy that you can trade. And then you have a lot of people behind him, young guys that we were just talking about that could fill his spot. And yeah, I want a big fish on this team. Yeah, I want power. We've been lacking so much power. So even to get a young guy with more home run potential could switch things up. So yeah, but I don't think so. I think they're going to stick with the Cubs mentality of Nico Horner. He represents that Cubs type of thing. Like I said, Tyler, there's a lot of fans out there that they don't want to disappoint. And I mean, there's a bigger conversation there that the Cubs consistently do that where they pick the nostalgia and the thing. But I think ultimately he's going to be on the team. Yeah.
Omar agrees. Nico Horner sucks. I think it's just fantastic. Straight to the point.
Oh, and real quick, not before you answer, Juice. What's so crazy? Before you answer, Juice, you brought this up last year, and you pissed me off when you said it too, because I was like, "How dare you? How dare you, Juice?" And now,
Juice is always ahead of the curve on shit like this.
Now I've jumped out of the boat I was in, swam over into your boat that you was in last year, and here we are.
I know, by the way, it's a really nice yacht, full, like 30-footer. Real nice. 50-footer at this point. I think it's going to get bigger because I think that I got more people swimming over. I think I'm going to have to upgrade. It's a real problem. Meanwhile, it was just me in my crazy boat, just hanging out in the middle of the ocean by myself. You want to know something crazy too? If you were ever at a time to sell high on Nico Horner, it's right now. He was one of the best hitters since August. He was incredible. And you're talking about a position that doesn't have a lot of output offensively in general. If you truly have one iota of idea that Shaw's going to be just incredible, you got to do it because you got to figure out a way to patch some of these holes. I would love to see them trade Nico Horner for a catcher. Like a really good catcher. So a guy who is young, a guy who they could, go out and Nico Horner.
Just say it. Say who.
I'm not.
I know who you're going to say it.
I got to hold for the plans, Tyler. The plans episode is going to be when we come out and we do pretty much all of this. But no, I mean, I hate it too because Nico is one of those guys that like you envisioned this. Not just this next great Cubs team, but the last one too, because he crosses over into that group of Chris Bryant and Rizzo that you looked up and you're like, man, like imagine when Nico's coming up and he's in his, 27, is his year 27. Like this is now, like he's 27 years old, 28 years old. And you were getting to the end of Bryant and Rizzo and all of those guys were kind of, getting older. you're like, oh, well, Nico Horner can be one of those guys that picks up the baton and runs with it. And that's why these Cardinal teams that bugged us for forever were always so damn good. It's like when 3 of them aged out, another 3 came in that we hated just as much. And I thought that's what the Cubs had. That didn't work. And now you look at it and you're like, I explained it in the show, like, I think it was before the All-Star break when we were in the middle of the slump, about having, 7 different types of mayonnaise. Like that's 100% what this roster is. It's 7 different types of mayonnaise. And it's like, we need like some cheese in here or some tomato. Like I can't just be eating mayonnaise sandwiches over and over and over again here. Like it's bad, man. Like, can I get some prosciutto? Can I get some, like, I need some help here. And you got to trade one of those pieces of mayonnaise to get, some meat back in this lineup. We need something, man. And I just think his position's so valuable because there's just not a lot of good second basemen that are out there that are going to be on the market even, to free agent wise, or because it's just a position that nobody really moves on from. Think about it. Like it's a position that doesn't move very much. And he does something that I don't think a lot of second basemen do. He plays really good defense, can move over to short when you need him. And he steals bases and hits for average. I mean, puts the bat on the ball. That's something that I think that a lot of teams would look for. But the Cubs need a guy who's going to hit 40 home runs. So find a way to package him with whatever you got to do and bring somebody in who hits 40 bombs, because that's what they need.
Yeah, 40 bombs would be really nice. A couple of comments here. Darren said, I'd take the gamble if told Shaw's the opening day second baseman. And there are a lot of comments here about your boat juice. It's a dinghy, according to Jeremiah.
No, it's
and
not.
Hank says it's I got a quarter tank of gas and 2 full kegs of beer.
It's dark and I'm wearing sunglasses. Hit it.
In addition here, Darren says Langoliers for Nico straight up. That one's above my pay scale. And then he says Nico is above a step mayo. He's Miracle Whip at a minimum.
Maybe he's like a ranch sauce.
I'm glad we got to the food juice like analogies. I feel like that's a must in every offseason episode. So the fact we got here when we did, I think is beautiful timing. Gentlemen, that's where we're going to cap it in terms of offseason predictions. We got plenty of that coming in November. We'll plan some shows as we get deeper into October here, and some topics to talk about, and obviously address anything that's happening in the world of Cubs baseball. Let's revisit some of these season predictions because this is gonna be fun. I'm gonna just kind of rapid fire them. I don't think we got to do a ton of analysis, but I do want to see your reactions to all of it. I do want to see the comment section's reaction as well. I even wrote down, I think there was a Scott from Iowa prediction that made it on the sheet today.
Nice.
I got it all written down right here. So we're going to go in order.
Probably has something to do with 40 home runs and 100 batted in for Wisdom, which he only does on his PlayStation playing the show.
It actually doesn't. And we're going to get there. We're going to get there. So first one being the Cubs win leader. Only one person on our panel predicted it correctly. Mr. Nick Hudson picked Shota Imanaga, and he was the wins leader. Everybody else picked Justin Steele. So, and in fairness, Justin had a great year, but only 5 wins because the dude couldn't get any fucking run support. So,
and he was hurt.
And agreed. So Steele's final numbers for the year: 24 starts. He was 5-5. He had a 3.07 ERA and 135 Ks, which was second on the team. And we'll get to the K leader thing here in a second. But Shota, 29 starts, 15-3. There's 15 was the win lead, 291 ERA and 174 Ks. ERA leader was the second one. Everybody picked Steele as the starter. It was Shota as the leader at 291. But 3 of us got into the weeds with relievers, and none of us were correct. Joey picked Merriweather, which he was hurt, and then when he did pitch, he wasn't the greatest. Tyler, you picked Hector Neris.
Oh, wow.
That one didn't age very well, unfortunately. I picked Yency Almonte, which also didn't
I
age
picked
well.
Hector Alfonseca. It would have been me, huh?
Yeah, and I picked Almonte. For reference, the top guys in terms of ERA with like notable innings, obviously Porter Hodge was really good, 43 innings of work, a .188 ERA. Lopez was really good in only 26 and 2/3 innings of work, but he had a 2.05 ERA. Tyson Miller, though, 50 and a third innings with a 2.15 ERA is pretty spectacular. So
they should bring him back. He was good. I didn't mind him.
I agree. I think we will absolutely see that at some point.
Hey,
we'll keep.
Real quick shout out. You were talking about ERA earlier. I know Shota had the lowest, but I'm pretty sure there was a stat in Justin's last 2 seasons, as the lowest ERA among, I believe, all pitchers.
Justin does? I believe that.
I believe it's at least NL pitchers, but anyways, just
because he was 307 this year. I think he was 303 last year, or vice versa. Like he's just above 3 over the last 2 seasons.
They shared it. It was either in his last start or next to last start. So you love
been
to
good.
see it.
He's been damn good. Strikeouts. I was the only person that picked Steele. I put next to it Derp because I'm the only one that got it wrong. Everybody else picked Shota. That was correct. Innings pitched leaders. Most people picked Steele. Unfortunately, it wasn't. It was Shota. Availability is the best ability on that one. I did do a innings per start metric. Justin was a 5.59 innings per start guy. Shota was a 5.96 innings per start guy. So, there was a little bit of that as well, and injuries obviously played into that. We get into some of the batting statistics here.
These are going to be funny.
Oh, these are good. These were my favorite.
I know somebody said say a 40 home run. Somebody did.
No, nobody said 40. Not per se. Well, maybe, but I didn't write that down at least. Batting average. 2 people were correct. Tyler, Nick, congratulations. You guys both picked Seiya Suzuki. He did lead the team amongst qualified hitters for batting average. And by qualified, I went with guys that at least played like 100 games. He had a 283 average. That was best on the team. Joey picked Nico. He finished the season with 273. Juice, you and I both picked Bellinger. He finished with a 266 batting average. On base percentage / walks. If we went by walks, congratulations. You were all correct on Hap except me, because I said Seiya. But if we go by OBP, you were all wrong, and I was correct because I said Seiya. So
Seiya, we'll call it
Seiya had a 366 OBP, while Hap had a 341, but Hap had 80 walks. Seiya had 63. So that's how that ended up shaking out. Home runs. This one's fun. Juice and I both said Christopher Morel. He had 18 with the Cubs, 21 overall in the season.
He was close.
Damn.
He was.
That's how sad this is.
Yeah, it's sad. Joey and Nick both said Seiya Suzuki, which he was tied for second, so you guys were the closest. Tyler, you said Bellinger. Bellinger had 18. That put him 4th on the team. The leader was Ian Happ, if anybody wasn't really following along with stats. He had 25. Bush and Seiya Suzuki both had 21. Bellinger had 18. Dansby Swanson had 16. And PCA had 10. And those are the 6 players that had double-figure home runs. So good on Pete Crow Armstrong to have a 10 home run season in 123 games. RBIs, nobody got it correct because nobody picked Ian Happ. He led with 86 RBIs. But Tyler, you and Juice both said Seiya. That was good for 3rd on the team. He had 73. Nick and Joey both said Belly. He was 2nd on the team with 78. I said Christopher Morel. I was very far off. He had 60 on the season between both teams.
That's right.
So that were those
really Christopher Morel.
Yeah, I was big on Chris. I said he'd be a 40 home run hitter. He had half of that production. This is where it got kind of fun. This is where I had the most fun, at least with it. So this was some of the more like, how do I put it? I guess like more analysis questions. This wasn't just like who's going to lead in a stat category. It was more like, hey, who's going to do this? Surprise player. Juice and I both said Morelino and Casey. I think we were both largely off on that. Casey had a great year, just it never happened at the major league level. Nick, you said Michael Bush. Attaboy. Nick was really good actually on these whole things. Like Nick actually.
I don't even know who you're going to say me yet, but
Tyler, you said Seiya, which I don't think is horrible when you consider the fact that 848 OPS was top 20 in all of baseball. I mean, He had a very good season. It just was very under the radar, I think, because of how anemic the Cubs offense was as a whole.
And how bad he was.
I was calling 2024 the season of Seiya. So
yeah, and 21 home runs, 73 RBIs out of Seiya Suzuki when it was all said and done. I will give a lot of credit, though, here, besides Nick. I think Joey nailed it. He said Miguel Amaya. And I think Miguel Amaya did surprise a lot of people. Sure. But still, I think at the end of the day. So Nick and Joey, I think, really took it home there. I wrote it down as biggest sad suck because I didn't want to spell disappointment because I was trying to write fast. But these were the disappointment ones, which these were fun.
Now, wait, these were the
Tyler.
ones like we think this guy's going to be a disappointment.
Yes.
Okay.
You thought like that they were going to be the biggest disappointment on the team this year. Tyler, you said Jamison Tyone.
I knew it.
I hate to break it to you, brother. He was not a disappointment.
He was not.
65 in a third innings. That was second on the team. A 3.27 ERA and 28 starts.
Yeah, I didn't have really hopes for him. Yeah. Prove
Nick,
me wrong, JMO.
Yeah. See, this was the section we all said, like, I hope we're wrong. So good job. You were wrong.
Hey, Jameson, I know you're listening. I'm glad I was wrong.
Facts. Nick, I'm glad you were largely wrong as well. Javier Assad was your pick. He did only throw 147 innings, but he did make 29 starts, which was tied for the lead of the team with Shota. And he had a 3.73 ERA. Pretty good numbers from Javier Assad in the course of the season. I'm going to skip Joey because I want to come back to Joey.
Okay.
Juice, you said Bush/Hendricks. I think you were unfortunately right, largely on Hendricks, 5.92 ERA. I think that was pretty much a disappointment. Bush, I would largely say you were maybe a little wrong.
Yeah, no, definitely not good. Hendricks was. I remember talking about Hendricks, and they asked way too much from Hendricks to start the year, and that was just.
And that's exactly what you said on the original show was they're going to ask way too much from him, and that's how it's going to play. So you said it right. I also said Bush, so I did preface. I will say I did preface that people were hyping him up as like a 30-100 guy, and I said if you talk me down to 25-80, I think that's fine. He was 21-65, so not too far off. I think hey, be level set. If this guy's this, like, that's still great. He was that.
Man, 60 RBIs in this offense was like 100 in any other offense.
On any other normal offense in baseball. Yeah, absolutely. I will say, though, I get the biggest you douche moment of the thing because I said Shota would be the biggest disappointment for a pitcher.
He was so good.
That's right. I remember.
He was so good. So I literally wrote in parentheses, you douche, end quote. Joey nailed it, though. Because he said Hector Neris would be the biggest disappointment of this team, and he fucking nailed it.
He didn't even make it.
Didn't even make it to the end of the season. So good on Joey. Joey nailed it. Joey was all over it.
By the way, speaking of Hector, is he on the Astros playoff?
He is. So is he a disappointment if he's on a playoff roster?
He pitched today.
He's the guy. I'm telling you, we said it earlier. He's the guy in the high school project that didn't do jack crap.
Has he been good for the Astros or no?
Probably.
He's actually been worse for the Astros.
He has. Wow.
Good to know.
Like his numbers have actually increased since he left the Cubs.
That's crazy.
Like his ERA has increased.
There's 3 former Cubs on the Astros playoff roster right now.
Bonkers. Absolutely bonkers.
Caratini. I didn't realize he was on their roster. I knew Hayward.
Oh, that's right. I forgot that he went that way.
He actually almost got the game-winning hit for him. It ended up being like a line out today, but I did not know about. I totally forgot about Caratini.
I forgot he was an Astro too. I really did. This is where the Scott from Iowa call out happens. Nice. He said Ian Happ would be the biggest disappointment on the team.
Ooh, that's bad.
And Ian Happ led in multiple offensive categories. So he gets the wah award for that one.
Scott gets the funeral music.
Scott gets the funeral music. We have 3 more things to run through here really quick. I just want to give some love to the comment section before we keep pushing forward. Omar said Dansby Swanson having only 16 home runs. The Cubs need more than that from him. I tend to agree. Darren said a little bit earlier that he could live with Ranch. He says need a show right after Belly makes his decision. A lot of points moot until then. I think that's fair. I think somebody can sneak in a show. That will be 5 days. I think it's 5 days after the World Series ends that options need to be declared. So That's early November. That's right around when we would probably have the next show. So that probably will be our next show when it's all said and done. Omar says trade Dansby Swanson. Unfortunately, that won't happen because he has a no move clause. Tyson Lopez need to be back, according to Darren. I tend to agree. I think they would be great ads back. And Nick is the quiet, deep thinker, according to Darren. I don't think he's far off on that one. Nick, you had some good ones, Nick. I was going through this. I was like, Nick kind of smashed on a lot of these. I was very impressed. 3 more topics. We noted about the Dinger picks. So I will go ahead and read off our totals. I don't know the Dinger guys' totals yet.
I'm going to go ahead and a recap.
You want a quick recap here, Tyler?
Tyler, I picked more in April than you did the whole year.
Oh, I know.
Well, you tied with him in April.
That's fair.
Year.
That's fair.
Juice led and won with 23, but Juice had a very hot start, just like the Chicago Cubs with 11 in April. Joey finished the season with 21. Nick had probably the most impressive stretch down the season. He finished with 20. I finished with 16, and Tyler finished with 11. Ironically, when I built the graphic at the beginning of the season, that was the exact order that I built the graphic in. Juice was the top line, then Joey, then Nick, then Ron, then Tyler, and that's how it ended. So did I predict the order? Maybe.
You did.
Kind of crazy, but nonetheless, that's how it shook out. So good job, Juice. Good job to you, Joey, and Nick for all getting over 20. I think that's pretty impressive. It took me a while to get
my countries. 10 is a lot. So
in some countries,
because of your 10, we beat the Dingers though.
Yeah,
so probably we'll have to look and we'll have to confirm
contribution. So take that, Dingers.
Now Tyler's going to pick 162 next year. Every single game that we pick, he's going to pick the Cub that goes yard.
I hope so. I think that would be awesome.
Me too.
Speaking of Dingers, though, so we did pick who was going to hit the first home run of the season. I am happy to inform that one of us did get it correct.
Who did hit the first? Did they hit a home run on opening day?
Michael Bush did, right?
Nobody hit a home run on opening day.
Nobody hit a home run.
Not for the Cubs. Day. It was the second game of the season.
So it was against the Rockies. Okay.
It was against the Rangers. Remember they?
Oh yeah, that's right. You're right, because they played on the road.
Is in game 2. One of us got it correct, and it was the person that had the most analytical answer to this question. So it was none of us 4 because Joey got it correct. Joey got it correct that he said Dansby Swanson. Dansby Swanson hit the first home run of the Cubs season. Nick, you picked Seiya. Juice, you picked Bush. Tyler, you and I both picked Happ. The only other player to homer in that entire Texas Rangers series other than Dansby Swanson was Christopher Morel. So did just want to bring that up. He homered in game 3. Bold predictions. This was the fun one. One was kind of correct. The other 4 were, 3 of them were way off base. 1 was a little off base. So we'll go with the most dramatic, crazy, stupid ones first. I said they would have a top 5 offense. I put LOL next to it when I wrote this down. They were still 12th in runs scored in baseball. I would like to make that known.
That's so wild.
That is so weird.
Baseball is so stupid.
Baseball's so weird.
Makes me want to go back and just recount all the runs.
They had 736 runs scored. That was good for 12th in the league. Yeah. So, I was off, though. They were not a top 5 offense. Nick, you said they would be division winners. I'm sorry, buddy. You were incorrect. Joey said that Seiya Suzuki would be a top 3 MVP candidate for the NL. Unfortunately, that's not going to be correct. He did have a good season, though. So I think counting on Seiya to have a good year was fine, truly. Juice, you said the pitching staff would be below the top 15 in ERA in all of baseball.
No, they were
pitching as a whole.
They
were 10th.
10th.
They were 4 points out of 6th.
That's right.
So they had a 3.78 team ERA. 3.74 was 6th place. Yeah. There was only 4 points that separated 10 through 6.
That's usually how it works. Yeah. That sucks.
Yeah. So
man, you can't. How do you? That makes it even worse because they pitch so well. It's just score some runs.
That makes it feel even more of a waste of the season.
Because my favorite stat in baseball is at the end of the year, look up the top 12 in ERA, and you'll see pretty much all the playoff teams. It's not that.
Not the Cubs.
It couldn't be. No, it's wild.
Not the Cubs. I will say this, Juice. Here's something that we can do as as a group here real quick. These are the ERA later. These are the ERA leaders in the top 12. We're going to go from 12 to 1.
Okay.
It's a lot of playoff teams.
Yeah.
Padres had a 386. They were 12th. Phillies, 385. They were 11th. The Cubs were 10th at a 378. The Tampa Bay Rays had a 377. They were 9th. They did not make the playoffs. Yeah. Kansas City Royals were a 376. They made the playoffs. New York Yankees, 374, made the playoffs. Astros, 374, made the playoffs. Milwaukee Brewers, 365, made the playoffs. Detroit Tigers, 361, made the playoffs. Cleveland Guardians, 361, made the playoffs. Seattle Mariners, 349, missed the playoffs. Atlanta Braves, 349, made the playoffs. So the Mariners were tied for the best ERA in baseball, did not make the playoffs.
Yeah, at least we weren't them.
You want to talk about not scoring runs. Seattle there for a while was
blowing a 10-game lead in the division, so there's that at least.
I'm going to look. I think, too, good exercise while we're on the break here is to look at the Seattle Mariners even closer and see how they failed in comparison.
Oh, man. Yeah.
Because
it's bad. Yeah, they had a lot more talent and probably should have been a playoff team. It's funny. I have a colleague or a former colleague of mine that she's a Seattle Mariners season ticket holder. So I'm very excited to send her a little message here shortly and go, what happened? What her reaction?
Not just that, man.
Too soon, Ron. I don't know. The Astros just lost, so at least
Yeah, if the Astros get eliminated, then I'll ask because it'll ease the pain a little.
How are you tied for best in base and not make at least the wild card?
Yeah. And how about the Atlanta Braves with all their rotation injuries still being the best ERA in baseball?
That's crazy.
Yeah, and now no sale for the wild card.
I don't even if they had Chris Sale. Just a side note, I don't see them beating the Padres.
No, I don't either. They're
freaking hot right now.
Thank God the Cubs don't play in that West division.
Mm-hmm. Right?
That's going to be a problem for a while.
Yeah, the AL West is gross, to say the least. The final bold prediction of the season, Tyler, you nailed yours, technically. Morel would have the most games of any player at third base for the Cubs, and that was correct. He had the most innings of any player at third base for the Cubs this season. Even Isaac Paredes, after the trade, did not get close. Actually, fun fact that I did not realize, Christopher Morel, every inning he played by definition in the field was at third base. That was it.
Yeah.
So he never moved around. He didn't play second for a couple innings. He didn't play outfield for a couple. All of it was third or he was a DH, and that was it. But he still played the most innings at third base of anybody defensively. So you were correct.
And then he played left in Tampa and was bad.
He did. He played 579 defensive innings at third base. Isaac Paredes played 426 defensive innings at third base. So, for what that is worth, the final fun one, we talked about it a little bit before the show, so we know the results, but this is for everybody at home. Wins. Me, I am the biggest douchebag. I am the biggest asshole. I said 91. Good job, Rob. Yeah, we were bad. Joey said 87. A little further off. Tyler and Juice, you guys were both 2 away from the actual number. Tyler, you were a little more bullish. You said 85. Juice, you were a little more bearish. You said 81. Obviously, 83 was the final number. Nick, congratulations again, buddy. You nailed it. 82 wins is what you said. 1 off of their actual number. So you were the winner in that aspect. So, again, I took all these notes earlier. I listened back to the show. I thought it was fun. I had a good time doing it. It was just fun to see what had happened over the course of the season. Because, again, I feel like I said a number of times on the show with you guys, with some of the solo shows, things like that. Like, baseball is such a season of length that it's crazy when you think about what was happening before the year and at the end of the year, and you see how things change. Did Tyler just shit his pants on accident or something? Have to run out of the room.
I don't know, but whatever he did it abruptly.
He just ran. I didn't even fully see what happened. He just got up and left.
I don't even think he gave the 1 second.
No, he just left
out of there.
I think Willie Harris gave him the go ahead from third. He's like, yeah, go in.
Speaking of that, while we're on that topic and we're waiting for Tyler here before we move forward, Scott from Iowa had a freaking phenomenal comment earlier that made me giggle a little bit that we did not get to. He says, in what world does it make sense to fire Mike Napoli and keep the king of getting guys thrown out at home, Willie Harris? in relation to and this is the thing. This was just the initial round of firings. It doesn't mean that Craig still won't make changes. I think it's just because those are the guys they know for sure aren't coming back, and they want to see what else is out there.
They better not fire Tommy Hotovy, though.
No, I agree. Hotovy's the one guy that should keep his job if anybody.
Yeah, Hotovy should not go.
Tyler, did you like shart on accident or something? You ran.
Are you okay?
I just had to pee really bad.
Oh, okay.
Oh.
You ran, and we were like, I don't know what happened.
I thought I put it on mute.
we thought Willie Harris like waved you home.
No, I would have been out. Oh, my bad.
Incredibly well played. A couple of quick comments here before we get into some season awards and some bold predictions to wrap things up here today. Hank said when the Cubs traded for Paredes, he said that he'd struggle hitting at Wrigley, especially power. We disagreed.
Well, sorry, Hank.
He did. He was right. I'm hoping next year is different, but yeah, I mean, Paredes was really a night and day difference player. He was much better on the road than he was at Wrigley. Unfortunately, I think most Cubs were that way this year. Wrigley did play oddly different than it normally does in the summer.
All right, Jed.
So hold on, time out. Tyler and I talked about this actually at the Athletics game because we talked about the weather at Wrigley this year. And I said, I was like, as somebody who lived within 2 miles of the ballpark all year and all summer, I can attest to that. Like, it was a weird, it was much cooler. The wind was always blowing off the lake it was odd. It wasn't a normal, what you would expect at Wrigley in the middle of the summertime. Like, there was very few days that were truly like that this year.
All right, Jed, I'll sign your contract, Jed. It's all right.
Okay,
don't worry about
thank you. Darius says, how is that possible? We forget about the 13 run games, I guess, when followed by the 1 or 2. They didn't have as many of those this year. It was just a little more spread out. He said, I bet our bullpens combined. This was in relation to the Mariners.
Let's not even go there.
They didn't have a true closer all year. Otherwise, they're in the playoffs. Probably 100% true. They had a dominant rotation. And Omar said, I don't want John Maleziak from St. Louis Cardinals. He'll be done after next year, 2025.
Is
I don't want
that in the Cardinals. Is that what?
I think front office.
Front office.
Yeah, I think front office. Yeah, I don't know. We'll have to wait and see. Gentlemen, just quickly around the horn. We don't have to get into too much detail or depth here. I have a season MVP, a season Cy Young, and a season favorite story. Obviously, Cy Young, MVP don't have to be the same player. You can pick a pitcher and a hitter. If you think it should be a pitcher as the MVP, by all means, you can double down. And then favorite story, again, just like who was the guy that you were like, hey, this guy had a fun season? Like, doesn't necessarily have to be great, but like who was your story from the year that you were like, yes, this is the guy I wanted to find? Season MVP. We'll start there. Juice, you want to lead us off?
The wind. It prevented many Cubs baseball wins. No, I'm just kidding. No, it's Ian Happ. I mean, let's be real. Like, if there was any consistent mainstay within the lineup who didn't fluctuate like crazy, it was Ian Happ. I mean, he walked when he didn't hit, and when he was hitting, he was maybe one of the guys you could look at and say maybe he carried your lineup for a couple weeks. Other than that, I mean, I know maybe Shota would be a good answer, but at the end of the day, like, Shota just didn't play every day. And to me, like, Ian Happ played every day. He's going to win another Gold Glove. Led the team in RBIs, led the team in home runs. And honestly, it's his game, but it's not his game, right? Like, he's a gap-to-gap guy that he hits home runs when he can, but for him to flex 25 makes me feel like, can you flex 30 next year? Like, that'd be cool. Like, I'll walk as much as you do and flex 30. Then we're talking about a legitimate left fielder that is, like, for the position. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Because you need like 25 to 30 to sometimes 40 bombs out of your left fielder. Look at Kyle Schwarber. So
sure. Absolutely.
I'll go in Happ.
I like it. Nick?
Shota Minaga.
I like it. Tyler?
Gotta agree with Nick. Shota Minaga. I think he doesn't perform the way that he performs. When he did, they wouldn't have even been in the situation they were in, whatever it was, August.
That's fair. I'm going to agree with Juice here. I'm also going to take Ian Happ. I think just it can't be understated what he did this year, despite it being what largely many would consider a failure of a season from the grand scheme of it all. I think he was sensational. I think the amount of people call it, and this is not a shot at anybody, Hank, people in the comments, we love you. But like the people that are like Trady and Hap, movie and Hap to a different position, like, no, the guy wins gold gloves. He hits, he figured out the slugging. He walks, he plays good defense. Like he does everything you could ask the guy to do from a baseball player. Like, if anybody I don't want moved on the team, it's him. Like he right now, he's probably that guy for me in a lot of assets.
I didn't even think of that too, Ron. But you know what else he did that was uncomfortable for him that he overcame? He let off. Remember, he was a terrible leadoff hitter when they asked him to do that in 2017, and was never comfortable with doing it. Always wanted to hit the middle of the lineup, but he walks too much for him not to do it. And he did it for a lot of the year this year. That's give him some kudos for that.
And he bounced around too. He was the 3 guy for a stretch. He was the 5 guy for a stretch. He was the 1 guy for a stretch. Like he was hitting in important positions in the lineup the whole season and asked to do a number of different things. And he did them maybe not the greatest, but like well enough to his capability. And I think that shouldn't be understated. Season Cy Young. Do we all just agree it's Shota Imanaga? Does anybody have any rebuttals to that?
No, but I will say this. If he didn't get hurt and had more consistent starts, I think J-Mo would have made a huge consideration.
I think Justin would be in the same boat. I think those 3 would have all been right equal with each other when it was all said and done.
J-Mo, not only because everyone remembers Justin Steele's injury at the first game of the season, but a lot of people forget Jameson didn't start till about a month later.
Yeah, he started like the 3rd week of April was his first start, I think.
I don't remember a lot of bad JMO starts either.
No, there weren't a lot of them. Like a bad JMO start was like 3
not like last season. No, I don't remember a lot of them. No.
Yeah, there weren't many of them. So
yeah, whatever he did this year, bottle it up and do it again next year.
Agreed.
That's a guy.
I think if injuries never played a factor, I think we would have had a legitimate debate at the end of the season between Steele, Tyone, and Shota, because I think all 3 of them were phenomenal. And again, I think it's a testament. Go ahead, Jim.
I know it was at least twice this year. I want to say 3 times he faced the same exact lineup in back-to-back starts.
Yeah, that's not easy.
With Pittsburgh,
Atlanta.
Was it? Okay, I couldn't remember. I knew Pittsburgh and Cincinnati.
Pittsburgh and Cincy for sure.
I can't remember if it was Atlanta or Milwaukee. One of the other.
I think it was Atlanta.
3 times.
Yeah. Yeah, he got shafted a lot where like the lineup saw him like less than a week later just because of how the schedule squared out. And again, I think that's a testament to how good he was. I mean, he still posted, a 3.07 ERA. I mean, that's still incredibly impressive when it's all said and done. Still made 24 starts, despite the injuries. And Tyone made 28 starts. Shota made 29 starts. Javier Assad made 29 starts. I mean, if those are your 4 going into next year and you replace Kyle Hendricks with Corbin Burns, not necessarily saying that's the case, but again, there's a lot of good free agent starting pitchers. I think a lot of people feel like, wow, you can let the young kids like get healthy again and try to find their groove again while still having a legitimate rotation of guys that we're all sitting here making cases for to be the season Cy Youngs. But I agree. I think we all agree that, Shota ended up earning that this year. Season favorite story. Nick, I want to let you lead this one off. Who was your favorite story of the season?
Yeah, it's going to be Michael Busch. Just excited to see him come up to so well. He was blocked in LA, as we talked about, and he was given the runway and he took advantage of it. He really performed well. And a lot of episodes I remember talking about how he was the best offensive player on the team and that's kind of a problem. So it ended up being a fun story just watching Michael Busch and seeing that power too. So that was fun.
Yeah, my perhaps favorite memory of the season at the ballpark was with the 2 down here for the Busch walk-off home run.
Yeah,
that was electric, literally and figuratively, because there's like lightning like right over the ballpark. Everybody's freaking out that they might go into a delay, and then he ends it. That was phenomenal. I'm going to steal the second spot here in answering this question as my favorite story. Pete Armstrong was my favorite story of the season because for him to turn around his disastrous start to the season at the plate continue to play Gold Glove defense over the course of the year and then effectively turn himself into like an 800 plus OPS player over the last 3+ months of the season was truly impressive. And it makes me excited for the fact that like the guy that was the top prospect in the system for so long that has now officially graduated because he's played enough MLB time might legitimately pan out to be a guy worth the hype of a top prospect. And I think for me, that's why it was my favorite story. And that gets me excited about what's to come next year. Tyler, your favorite story from the season?
My favorite story, I could easily say Shota, but I'm not. My favorite story, it actually started out as a crappy story, and that is Miguel Amaya. That guy, I'll be honest, pissed me off on numerous occasions at the beginning of the year because of his defensive play. I think the very first, Ron, you were there for it, your 9-9-9 challenge against Arizona. I watched him single-handedly lose that game for Arizona. He did the same thing, I believe it was in Milwaukee. Single-handedly lost that game. I want to say there was another game. He did the same thing in the first half of the season. That whole first half, it was basically like Jason Hayward, but on the right side. I was like, oh, Miguel Amaya's up. Ground ball to the left side of the infield. You could have bet 9 out of 10 times, 10 out of 10 times, 11 out of 10 times. That's what was going to happen. And then it's like something clicked in that second half. He changed his stance up a little bit, adjusted a couple things, and the dude saved himself from a demotion. Big time. I thought first half of the season should have been demoted because of the way he was playing in the first half. He changed my perspective in the second half. Am I sitting here saying, oh, man, I want him to be the opening day starter for 2025? No, but I think with his second half, he's at the very least earned himself a roster spot on the MLB opening day roster. And it was just, it was good to see him adjust from that.
I like it. Juice.
So I have a moment, and then I have, my favorite from the year in terms of storyline. My favorite moment was last week, and it was, Kyle Hendricks' final start as a Cub. I mean, to have that same line from Game 7 in the World Series, or Game 6 that pitched him into the World Series from the NLDS or NLCS, where he went 7 in the third, only giving up 2 hits. Like we talk too much about like what this team needs to do, but I think we should really step back and look at like how baseball is like poetry in some ways. It presents moments like this just oddly enough. Like it's so just odd that that's his last start. He's going to have that same run line, same, kind of performance. He really went into his bag, and just what an awesome Cub. At the end of the day, like what a great, guy to watch over the course of these last, Cub runs. And I hope he gets a chance to pitch somewhere. I do, because I think he deserves that comeback treatment just as much as Rizzo and Bryant and Baez got, this year. But it was cool to watch a lot of these guys return to Wrigley Field and get their moments, like Rizzo and Javi obviously, came back. But my favorite story, I think, for kind of this Cubs team went very, below the radar. And I think it was Porter Hodge. Like Porter Hodge is a guy. That's an arm. Like we're talking about 1.88 ERA, struck out 52 guys in 43 innings pitched with a .88 WHIP. Like those don't grow on trees. They just don't. And failed starter or not, a guy who I watched pitch in South Bend, I wasn't the highest on him. It wasn't ever the lowest. I thought he had good stuff. Maybe, was going to be one of those contribute guys. But, man, he's developed. And he's got me excited for next year. I'm curious how they're going to use him. I wonder what inning he'll get, because he's definitely a guy that I'm counting on going into next year to help solidify this bullpen, because they're not going to go out and sign 6 arms. They're just not going to do it. Some of this is going to have to come within, and that's a name.
I like it. I did enjoy the Porter Hodge story. Very, kind of felt like a very kind of came out of left field to a large portion of the Cubs fan base. I think people that followed him over the course of the season and throughout his minor league career knew like he was a guy that had upside. And when it came to fruition and panned out, I think a lot of people were super excited about it. Gentlemen, first off, I want to thank everybody that's made it this far in the show that's still listening along. You guys are freaking rock stars, whether it's live or over the course of a podcast. We got two final things to wrap up here, two final questions, and then we'll be off the air for a solid month before we're back on and talking Cubs baseball. So, gentlemen, I want to ask you guys the first question, your first bold prediction of the offseason when it comes to the Cubs. And this can be as outlandish or off the wall as you would like it to be, but I want to hear it. What is your first bold prediction of the off season? Whoever's got one ready, fire away.
I don't know if it's extremely bold. As much as I want them to, the Cubs will not get that big fish that we keep screaming about this offseason. I feel like Jed's going to stand pat for the most part. You're going to see maybe a bullpen piece here, maybe a project starter like a Walker Buehler that's coming off a bad year, and maybe a bat that had a good year maybe 2 years ago. But the big fish that we're screaming for, and again, it may not even be a bold prediction, but it's not coming.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Juice, Nick?
I think the Cubs make 2 big trades this offseason to land position players, and they sign Corbin Burns.
I like
Fair
it.
enough.
I like it, Juice. I hope you're right.
Yeah.
I hope you're right too.
If there's one, but think about it. If there's one thing that this front office has always paid for, it's pitching. They will give that deep contract if it's pitching.
It's true. That's true. That is true. Nick?
I was going to say, I have a very spicy take. As many holes as they need to fill behind the plate, in the bullpen. How cool would it be to go get Corbin Burns and have that almost a quadruple-headed monster going into the year?
Nice. Be nice.
It would look very nice in the starting rotation. Gentlemen, my bold prediction for this offseason is that 3 of the top 6 prospects will be moved in deals. I don't know which ones, and I don't know for who, but I think 3 of the 6 will be moved in some capacity this offseason. That's my
They
first bold.
Yeah. I hope you're right, because I feel like in that situation, Ron, if 3 of the top 6 are going, I think something surely pretty decent's coming back. I hope you're right, but
I think it's really possible. It's funny actually. So I'm gonna tease this because this was something that I originally scrapped, and I think I'm gonna bring back now, especially because I think it's some good content for Cubs fans to watch. I recorded 3 trades that I would like to see the Cubs make this offseason as a video on StreamYard. I think I'm going to release it still. And ironically, it involves 3 of the top 6 prospects being moved. So I think that's where maybe some of that stems from.
please do it. I'll watch it.
All right. I'll have to release that and put that out. I got to do some editing on it, but we'll get that out here in the next week or so, so people can enjoy that before free agency really gets kicked off and everything starts to happen. A couple quick comments here from Darren. He said, my biggest bad of the year was thinking Counsell would be an 8-win difference over Ross. I think that's not necessarily fair to Counsell.
Maybe he was.
Maybe he was. Yeah. What if Ross coaches this team and they're a 74, 75 win team? That's a different story. That's a real different story at hand. He also says Miller, Lopez, Hodge, and Brown would be a good start for the 2025.
Hey, funny thing, Darren, just real quick, going all the way back to the press conference. They did ask him about Ben Brown. Still doesn't know.
This is the weirdest neck injury of all time.
What's going on with that neck?
It really is, dude.
Can we get him a new neck at this point?
I don't know.
I
offered Justin. I think I offered him my arm at the beginning, I offered my hamstring. Ben Brown, if you need anything from my neck, it's nothing to brag about, but holler over at me.
He does have a big neck, though.
Oh, well, mine's a little, but maybe.
No, he's got like dread
parts.
I can see how this could maybe be a problem. He's got big neck.
Maybe, I don't know.
You know what? You know what was really a fun story from this season? That fucking bunny that they kept talking about. Ben Brown's bunny, and then Taylor McGregor buried the fact that the bunny was dead. She buried the lead on it, like, oh, Ben Brown has this bunny. He loves this bunny. And the bunny died. And it's like, Jesus Christ, Taylor, like burying the lead on us.
Hey, another good moment too. Bush walk off. That was fun.
That was fun.
Yeah, that was
probably my favorite like ballpark memory of the season. Outside of opening day, because opening day is always a gem. And like the first show to start was special. But yeah.
That was probably as far as being there at the stadium live, that would have to be it's up there.
Just think of it this way too, guys. We could have been the White Sox fans.
That's true.
Just imagine watching that.
Yeah.
That's true. That was.
Is it true that the Tigers won just as many games in the second half as the White Sox did
in all of the
season?
I believe that's probably correct.
I think you're right, Juice, because they shared a graphic during the Astro Tigers game this morning, and I feel like they were like 30 something and whatever in the second half, and that sounds pretty close to what the White Sox won all year.
Because that's ridiculous.
Yeah.
Yeah, let me find something there really quick, because now you've got me going down a rabbit hole with the Tigers here really quick. So we're gonna find out.
That's the most fun story in baseball.
They are a fun story.
Detroit, they had like a 0.8% chance of making the playoffs.
I know. How crazy is that? And
yeah, they pulled it out of their ass.
That's crazy. And the fact that there's two teams from the AL East.
Central.
Sorry, three. There's three teams from the AL East that's in the playoffs. Who would have predicted that at the beginning of the year?
Yeah, three teams from the AL Central made the playoffs.
Yeah. And two
Cleveland, Kansas City, and Detroit. And you know what's funny is of the ones that did make it, Cleveland was probably the only one that actually had like legitimate expectation. A lot of people thought the Twins were going to run away with that division, and they didn't. They didn't even make the playoffs.
The Royals manager, I can't think of his name. He will probably win Manager of the Year for a team that won. It was something stupid last year for them to make such a big improvement this year.
Well, I would say this. I think AJ Hinch has a legitimate chance with the Tigers. I really do.
Yeah.
Like, I think there's a real chance there.
Yeah.
So quickly here, the White Sox had 41 total wins over the course of the whole season. In the second half, Detroit had 39 wins.
Yeah. I knew it was close.
They were 39-26 in the second half after going 47-50 in the first half.
And mind you, the White Sox won 3 in a row at home to stave off.
At the end of the season. Yeah,
so
to stave
at one
off history.
Point they were. Real quick question before we get out of here, too. Go ahead, Rod. Sorry.
Well, I got one more stat. I do have one more thing for you guys to give me before we leave, but I want to hear from you as well. Just one really quick thing. The Tigers had the exact same record on both the road and at home. They were 43-38, which is super weird. They also only had 2 losing months of baseball the whole year, May and June. Outside of that, they were above 500 every single other month. They were also really good in one-run games, 31-24.
What's that like?
I don't know. Wouldn't know. Go ahead, Juice, though, with your question.
No, who going around the horn? Who are you guys rooting for in the playoffs or watching closely?
Ooh,
I'll go first. I hope the Orioles win it all.
Okay,
that's just me. I know they're probably not going to, but I like that team. They play fun.
They are fun. I'm going Royals. I love Bobby Witt Jr.
That's a good pick. I love Bobby Witt Jr. too. That's a good pick, Nick. I was thinking the Royals just to be. I've said it all year long because I'm jealous of this team, this franchise, everything about it. It just sucks that they're going to have a long break and it may affect them. The Phillies. I want to see the Phillies win. I
can't stand their fans. That's why I can't say it.
I see that fan. I just see that whole team. They're for everything, and I'm jealous. I'm so jealous.
I also wouldn't hate Cleveland winning the whole thing either.
I wouldn't hate Cleveland either. It sucks because I think every year everybody has the same thought as, oh, Cleveland's made it, but they're not going to get past that hump. And I don't know.
I think
it is crazy that 3 out of the 4 teams today, 3 out of the 4 games, the away team won. It's crazy.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah. The lower seed won every series except one.
Yeah.
San Diego was the only high seed in any of the matchups today to win. Everybody else lost. You know what? I think I do have to go with the team we were just talking about. I think the Tigers are fun. I think that's just a fun story.
It's
Such a young
team.
team. Yeah, they're a young team. That's a city that's just starved for success. Like, I think Detroit and Chicago are a lot more similar than they think, in the sense of, like, if you look over the history of their cities, like, there's not a lot of championships to speak on over the course of the history, given they're two, very prominent Midwestern cities.
Yeah.
I think a lot of Chicagoans can relate with Detroit, even though Detroit sucks, and that will forever and always abide here in the city of Chicago. But I wouldn't hate to see the Tigers winning, because I think they're just a fun team. And I think Terry Scooble's nasty. I think he's just fun to watch.
Are they the Arizona of last year?
Maybe.
Is that the Arizona?
I think the Mets are going to be that.
The Mets could be.
They're hot right now, are they? Yeah.
They're crazy right now, and you've got a potential MVP winner in Lindor. I mean, Ohtani's going to win it, but Lindor's going to be
another playoff series where we see the top seeds kind of at a disadvantage. I get it; they have their pitching staff where they want it, but I don't know, man. These teams like the Mets. They beat the Brewers right here, and then they'll turn around and whoever it is they're playing. Maybe it's the Phillies. I don't remember, but I wouldn't want to play the Mets if they beat the Brewers right now.
Anybody but the Dodgers. I just think it'd be poetic justice if Ohtani never wins with that contract going there. I think it would be poetic justice.
Speaking of, Omar has the Dodgers winning.
Yeah, they're probably going to win the World. I mean, I do think they need him to pitch, though.
Yeah, I think they do.
Yeah, like
an inning, like be a closer almost. Yeah, I could see that happening. I really do. Gentlemen, the one last question I had, this was something I sent over in the notes, and then we'll wrap this thing up because we are approaching the 2-hour mark here. One player that you are already banging the drum for the Cubs to get in any way, shape, or form, whether it's free agency, whether it's via trade. Who is that one player that you look and you go, you know what? He would be really cool if the Cubs could go get him this offseason.
Anthony Santander.
It's a good one.
I want 40 home
runs.
I
was thinking mine too.
Carlos
Estevez.
Carlos
Estevez?
Yeah, Phillies closer.
Could see that.
You know, it'd be real cool. You know, it'd be freaking awesome. Juan freaking Soto.
Yeah. Well,
I'm banging the drum. I'm pulling out the fire truck. I'm bumping up the sirens, the volume on the sirens and the horns and everything, the federal cue, all of it. And I'm blaring it out on the top of a mountain inside of a megaphone just so everybody I'm banging everything.
Where do you guys think he goes?
I think he stays in New York.
Yeah, I was going to say Yankees.
I think, but I think it depends.
Yeah.
I think it depends if the Yankees win or lose the World Series. If they make it,
I don't see it that way.
Isn't Teoscar Hernandez going to become a free agent? What if he goes to LA?
Don't even say that.
At that point, just name them the LA Death Stars.
Yeah. I think he stays in New York, but as far as which New York team, I still think it's up in there.
See, I like the Mets. I think the Mets are legitimately. I think what will happen this year is the Mets will make a run. They'll fall just short, and then they'll think,
convince.
And they're having
our
fun.
one guy.
Yeah. They're having so much fun right now.
Well, yeah, I mean they're in the playoffs.
I think Juan sees that, and then you compare it to New York. I don't know. I just think it's
We need a McDonald's mascot to come and change everything.
You need Grimace. Yeah, you need Grimace.
That's what we need.
Darren says Ricketts hopes the team with the lowest salary wins it all to make a case for the model for the future of the team.
Yeah, I get. Yeah.
So you guys had all good players real quick here. I had Santander as a possibility as well. I think he's real interesting. Brett Rooker was a guy that Tyler and I talked about at the Oakland A's game against the Cubs. But the two guys that I'm sitting here, especially because my dad told me, I don't know if this was just a report or like it would be cool type thing. But even if it's just it would be cool type thing, I can kind of get behind it. There's two players, one of which I think is much more realistic than the other. The first one is Willie Adames. Like, if there's a world where like you convince him to come play second base, I think you do it. Because 32 home runs and 112 ribbies with a 793 OPS is something I can get behind.
He played third a couple of games. If you wanted to move on from Paredes already.
Yeah, if you really wanted to, which would be crazy.
I mean, 20 stolen bases.
21 stolen bases.
He had some kind of stat that only him and A-Rod share.
Yeah, that's crazy. Probably a shortstop with 100 plus RBIs, 30 plus it's probably 30 plus doubles, 30 plus homers, 100 plus RBIs, and 20 plus steals. Because he had 33 doubles, 32 homers, 112 RBIs, and
dude's gonna get paid.
Yeah, he's gonna get money. But the other guy,
we get fat Adames. That's what would happen. We would get fat Willie Adames that would come in deep dish pizza overweight, and
we'd get Pablo Sandoval, Willie Adames.
Yeah, he hit 180.
Don't say that. Omar is in the same camp as you, Tyler. He's hoping for Juan Soto to the Cubs. The guy that I'm truly leaning toward, though, guys. I know we've talked a lot about the catching position and like going for youth, but like Logan O'Hoppe and Shea Langeliers are probably going to cost a fortune.
Mm-hmm.
Why not trade with the team that makes puzzling ass moves every single year that people scratch their heads? The Seattle Mariners consistently make weird trades. Cal Raleigh would be a sweet catching addition because he's 27. He plays a pretty good defensive catcher, and he's coming off a season with 34 homers and 100 ribbies with a 748 OPS. Like, yeah, he strikes out a lot and he hits 220, but if you're giving me a friggin', 436 slug and 34, I mean, he's had 3 consecutive seasons of 27 home runs or more. I would happily take that from the catching position.
Yeah, but are they trading any offense on that team with how bad they were? Like any positive offense? Like that's my question.
They shouldn't, but back to Ron's standpoint,
they've done some really dumb shit.
They've done some Yeah.
Like if there's any team I feel like you can fleece, it's the Mariners because
their front office could be like, oh my gosh, we've got to pay him $3 million more next year. Oh shit, we better trade him while we can.
Seriously,
we're gonna get every day of mine.
Yeah. Hey, one more guy real quick. I know I'm banging the drum for Juan Soto. That's my number one. Is it realistic? Probably not. My number two, that might be kind of realistic because what's his name? Jed said he talked about his prospects and the currency and all that kind of stuff. And a guy that all of us talked about this offseason. I remember I was at the Nashville Mall when we all thought Shohei Ohtani was going to the Blue Jays. And Ron, you brought it up, and I like it. Vladdy Guerrero.
I'm here for it.
I love it.
I'm here for it. Cal Raleigh also is heading arbitration 1 in 2025, so he would have 3 years of control if the Cubs decided to deal for him. So that's
Seattle.
What is that trade? That's Owen Casey right there to start.
You never know. Anywho, gentlemen, it was a blast getting back on the microphone with you guys. This was a long show. We're going to take a month off. We will probably reconvene with our next show being whatever Bellinger's decision becomes on the opt-out. I have a hot take that I think I'm going to put pen to paper of with Bellinger, and it being something along the lines of the best thing that could happen to the Cubs is Cody Bellinger opting out of his deal.
I agree with that.
And then we'll have to get on that. Maybe we'll do a show like 2 days before he makes a decision, and we can talk further about that. But nonetheless, this was a blast. We got to talk about what's the rest of the season, and I think all of us are into planned season, as Juice likes to say. Seeing how this Cubs team can get to where all these other teams that we've talked about with playoff baseball are sitting right now, and watching the Cubs hopefully in 2025 competing in October and into the depth of the season. As always, Cubs on Tap, 1 and 2 official shows here at the On Tap Source that recover the Chicago Cubs. Check out our friends over at the Dinger Podcast. They're live on Mondays and or Tuesdays at Dinger Cubs on the socials as well. You can find them right here on the On Tap Sports at YouTube page. Like, subscribe, hit the bell button. When all of our great shows go live. Again, they are at Dinger Cubs. We are at Cubbies on Tap. You see all of our Twitter handles here on the screen, and you know them by now because they've been repeated time and time again. Be sure to give Joey some love and a follow as well as he gets married this Friday, and we'll a large contingent of us will be there celebrating with him. Tyler, we'll get you there in
Joey,
spirit.
Congrats, Joey.
It's going to be great. It's going to be fun. And as always, Bears, Bulls, Blackhawks, all those teams are either in swing or about to be in swing. So be sure to check out all of our great shows here at On Tap Sports. At the On Tap Sports Network, go and check out what's on tap in Chicago sports. Boys, this was a blast. And as always, it's been a lot of fun. I'm sure we'll talk off air, but thanks to everybody that's watched along all season with us, commented along with us all season, especially. And I think what we all agreed was a season of missed opportunity and I think a lot of disappointment. We look forward to what 2025 brings, but there's still a whole winter for this team to hopefully get better. And we'll be here to talk about it when the time comes. But we're going to take October off. We're going to have some fun. We're just going to take some time away, and we will reconvene when shit starts to hit the fan and get spicy right around the beginning of November. Until then, gentlemen, what do you say? FTC, and let's go Cubbies.
Trick or treat, motherfucker.
Fuck the Brewers.
Hey, fantasy football. I'm 2-2. Shouldn't have started Caleb Williams this